I will be discussing about the article, which goes by the title of Global Climate Change and Greenhouse Effect by Alexei Mikhailov, Nikita Moiseev, Kirill Aleshin, and Thomas Burkhardt. It is published in the Journal of Entrepreneurship and Sustainability Issues, Volume 7, Issue 4, on the June of 2020. This paper examines climate change and intensification of the greenhouse effect due to human activities. Moving on to the causes of climate change, the authors identify key causes of climate change, including industrial activities, deforestation, and fossil fuel burning. These processes release greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, trapping heat and raising global temperatures. Now, for impacts of climate change has widespread consequences affecting human health, agriculture, sea levels, and biodiversity. Rising temperatures disrupt ecosystems, increase extreme weather events, and threaten food security. Lastly but not least, the aim of this article and proposed solutions. The article explains global warming using scientific data and highlights international efforts like the Paris Agreement. Proposed solutions include reducing emissions through technology, enforcing stricter policies, and shifting to renewable energy. I will now be talking about the summary. The title of this article is Global Climate Change and Greenhouse Effect. This article explores human-induced greenhouse gas emissions and their impact on climate change. The main causes include burning fossil fuels, industrial production, transportation, and deforestation. These activities release greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide and methane, which trap heat in the atmosphere. Moving on to the effects and scientific insights. The consequences include rising temperatures, worsening public health, reduced agricultural productivity, and extreme natural disasters. The article highlights that carbon dioxide levels have now exceeded 400 ppm, a critical threshold. Lastly, the policies and solutions. International policies like the Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement aim to reduce emissions. Proposed solutions include low-carbon technology, emission trading quotas, and sustainable energy development.
Let me briefly explain the background of the article. It focuses on human-caused climate change, mainly from fossil fuel burning and deforestation. The article explains the greenhouse effect well and gives useful historical context along with past research data and global efforts to fight climate change. However, there are some weaknesses. It doesn't talk about natural causes of climate change like solar activities or volcanoes. It also doesn't evaluate the effectiveness of policies like the Kyoto Protocol. The article lacks recent studies, missed the economic impact, and talks very little about how climate change harms biodiversity and ecosystems. Now, for the research question and hypothesis, the article doesn't clearly state any research questions or hypotheses. This makes it hard to follow the main focus of the study. Also, it lacks input from other fields like economics, technology, and sociology, which are important for solving climate issues. Lastly, the article doesn't test if climate policies are really working. It would be better with case studies and data showing whether these policies have actually reduced emissions or not.
For this part, I'm going to explain about the method used in the article along with the results and conclusion. So from this article, the studies has mentioned that they use multiple methods for this article, which is, for example, they use the energy balance to calculate how much heat is being absorbed and released to the environment, along with the CO2 tracking, which is they use for monitoring the CO2 emission and also movement from the land and also the ocean. And then that is they also use the climate strategies, which is they combine all the data that they found and they have gotten through their research to find solutions for the rising climate change. For the result and conclusion, for the result I have stated all the causes, also along with the impact, future risks, and also success of their research. And for conclusion is how I conclude the challenges, solution, and also the warning. So, for example, the causes of this rising climate changes is due to the deforestation, transportation, and industrial drive, which could lead to extreme weather, and also economic risks that happen because of the temperature being exceed to this from the safe limit by 2030. And the success is that some countries have reduced emission through strong policies. Also, for the conclusion part, I have concluded that if that the developing nation face greater risk due to the limited resources, and also it will go and we will face the irreversible environmental and economic damage is likely to happen if the action is not being taken seriously for this matter.
Next, we will discuss about the limitation in these research and their own suggestion. The first limitation is its own data and model sampling. This model sampling are failed to capture the nonlinear climate mechanism, and its data lack of real-time observational data, making the prediction accuracy less reliable. The next limitation is geopolitical and policy bias. This research focus heavily on Russia emission reduction initiative, while the research acknowledge the impact of climate change toward Africa country without any such justification that has been discussed in the research, and this research relies heavily on European Environment Agency data, making it biased toward the European country. The last limitation is lack of socio-economic consideration. This research ignores financial barrier in the developing nation regarding climate adaptation and green technology costs, making it less relevant to policymakers in poorer and developing countries. And we are suggesting the suggestion regarding this limitation. The first one is we can improve the climate model analysis, such as we can use a system model to integrate physical, chemical, and biological interaction between emission, carbon gas emission. And we also can incorporate real-time satellite data for more accurate emission tracking. The next one, we can expand geographical scope in this research in order to address regional vulnerability, particularly in Africa, to ensure a more balanced analysis and not biased toward European country only. The last one is we can include the socio-economic factor. We can, by assessing the impact of climate policy on employment, especially in carbon-intensive industry like oil and gas, and we can enhance policy applicability by considering financial constraints in the developing country. Now, we will discuss about the author's conclusion. There are three main points that we want to highlight here, which is key climate action point by the author, and the gaps in analysis of the research, and our recommendation to improve the research itself. The author urged CO2 reduction, renewable energy adaptation, and stricter climate policy to mitigate the impact of climate change. The author also stated that the policymaker around the world needs to support international cooperation, but this action lacks of consideration of economic and political and technological challenges. In terms of gaps in this analysis, there is no concrete policy recommendation for developing countries, especially in Africa, since the research acknowledged the impact of climate change toward the food security in Africa, but there is no recommendation to improve it. And also, this research also omits the needs for worker retraining program amid the transition from high carbon intensive industry towards green energy jobs, and ignore financial constraint in low-income nation. Our recommendation to improve this gap is we need to incorporate economic and social justice to ensure fair climate action, and we also need to provide region-specific climate strategy to fit in the different economic condition, not only just one particular country.
So for critiques, there are three areas of focus, which is the strength, the limitation, and the improvement. So for the first one, which is the strength, the study uses an energy balance model to project greenhouse gas emissions. It also includes sensitivity analysis to show how policy changes impact emissions and align well with policymaking. However, there are some limitations. The model lacks validation for key parameters, assumes carbon flux is linear, which isn't always true, and this reduces its reliability in the long run. To improve this, future research should validate assumptions with peer-reviewed data and include dynamic variables for more accurate predictions. Overall, the methodology is useful but can be made stronger with this improvement. The second one is socioeconomic concerns. So first, the strength. The study provides a detailed analysis of Russia's emissions and align with Paris Agreement's focus on national responsibility, making it useful for policy discussion. However, there are limitations. It relies heavily on European data, neglecting critical regions like sub-Saharan Africa. This lack of localized emission and health data makes the findings less globally representative. To improve this, future research should incorporate data from African and Asian institutions and expand its scope to better reflect global climate vulnerabilities. In summary, while the study offers valuable insights, addressing these gaps would enhance its relevance and fairness in climate research.
The study does a good job analyzing Russian emission trends, showing a 54% decrease in emission from 1990 to 2007. This provides useful insights for countries that rely on fossil fuels. However, the research is too focused on Europe and relies on Eurocentric data from the European Environment Agency. It ignores other important regions like sub-Saharan Africa, where the climate change is causing serious health and agriculture problems. Without local data from the areas, the study global relevance is limited. To make the research more accurate and inclusive, the future studies should include data from African and Asian research institutions. This would ensure that climate policies address the need of all regions and not just Europe.
Now, for the last part of this presentation, which is the conclusion, I will now be talking about it. In conclusion, this study analyzes climate change using an energy balance model, Russia's emission trends, and policy analysis. providing valuable insights. However, it has key limitations. The lack of empirical data and exclusion of nonlinear climate feedbacks make long-term projections less reliable. Additionally, its reliance on Eurocentric datasets limits its applicability to climate-vulnerable regions. While the policy discussions are strong, they overlook socioeconomic factors like employment and social justice. To improve, the study should incorporate diverse datasets, enhance model validation, and address just transitions to ensure both scientific accuracy and social fairness.